for joining us. We are so pleased that you could join us today for this vital conversation about using technology to end female genital mutilation and cutting. My name is Caitlin LeMay. I am the Executive Director of the US End FGMC Network, and I'm proud to be your moderator throughout this event today. Please note that the event is being recorded. And before we jump in, I would like to share a little bit about the Global Platform for Action to End FGMC. The Global Platform got its start nearly 3 years ago at the 2019 Women Deliver Conference in Vancouver, Canada. More than 100 activists, survivors, professionals, civil society representatives, and community leaders from all around the world came together in person at a special one-day pre-conference to discuss how to collaborate to accelerate a global end to FGMC. By the end of the day, participants had created a global call to action to end FGMC by 2030. Nearly 950 organizations and individuals have since signed on to support this call to action. And this event will explore how technology, internet communication, and the digitalization of awareness raising can help achieve the elimination of female genital mutilation and cutting. This will be an opportunity to hear from some of the leading innovators in the area of technological solutions to addressing FGMC and other digital adaptation strategies. We're bringing together speakers from many parts of the world today. Some will give short talks in the style of a keynote speech, and then others will join us for a panel and audience Q&A. And today we're joined by Priya and Miriam for two keynote talks. So I will introduce them in a moment. And other panelists will then share their experiences and ideas through a panel discussion. All of them will speak about the successes, the challenges, and reasons behind using technology to empower communities to abandon FGMC. So to learn more about our speakers, please take a look at the speaker bios that are in the chat for more information. Finally, you'll see me appear throughout the event to introduce speakers, and my colleague Ismail Omar will moderate the panel discussion, and he'll introduce himself momentarily as well. So in the meantime, and throughout the entire event, please feel free to interact via the chat. Members of the Global Platform for Action to End FGMC will be keeping an eye on the chat as we go along. And you, of course, are welcome to submit questions for the Q&A as well that will come after the panel. So without further ado, I would love to introduce Priya Goswami. Priya is a national award-winning documentary filmmaker, co-creator, creative head, and CEO of AI-driven app startup called Mumkin, which is available on the Google Play Store. In 2015, she co-founded SEO, an international nonprofit with 4 other women. And now, without further ado, I'm proud to hand it over to you, Priya.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. My name is Priya. My pronouns are she and her. And today I'm going to be speaking a little bit about Mumkin. But before I do any talking, I'd like to share a video with you. I'm going to try and share my screen at the moment. If you're not able to see it, please let me know. I'm just going to cue the video in and yeah. Okay, let's see. Are you able to see this YouTube video? Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, I believe so.
All right, thank you.
If there's sound, I do not hear any sound though, Priya.
The sound is on. You're not able to hear anything?
I cannot, no.
Oh, okay. In that case, let me do one thing. Just okay, let me just play the video, and then I'll also share the link in the chat. What do you think, Caitlin?
Yeah, you can also try unsharing your screen and then sharing it again. And there should be a little checkbox that says to share your audio as well. So you can try that.
Okay. Yes, you're right. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
Perfect.
Hi, I'm Mumkin. I make difficult conversations possible. Today, let's talk about female genital cutting. So, when I say female genital cutting, what comes to your mind? Maybe you think, oh, that's a lot. Maybe you know someone who has undergone this practice. Maybe you have undergone it yourself. Or maybe you'd like to talk about this ritual with someone but just don't know how to start. So, let's start right here. Female genital cutting is more common than you think. The UN estimates that over 200 million women and girls have undergone this practice worldwide. And that's just the official data. Many Asian communities practice it as well. One of them is India. All off the record. Yes, female genital cutting is practiced by a few communities in India. It is not just an African ritual, nor is it an Islamic one. In fact, in cultures that do practice it, it's an age-old ritual, a tradition passed down from generation to generation. And because it's a tradition, it is seldom questioned. You see, tradition is key here. And you know what happens when you try to question a tradition? Traditions are part of who we are. And most of us don't like our long-held beliefs to be challenged. So of course, it's extremely difficult to have these conversations about changing a social norm with someone who actually believes in it. That's where I come in. Mumkin. I make difficult conversations possible. I can help you start a discussion about female genital cutting with your loved ones. It will probably be an emotional journey, but I will be there with you. So start your conversation.
Okay, if you've seen the video and if you were able to hear, just give me a second, I need to. You've seen the video and if you've heard what it says, the word conversation keeps popping up. Like Caitlin introduced me, I am co-founder of SEYO and also a documentary filmmaker. While creating Mumkin, one of the key things that we thought about was what is the hardest step for anyone out there, whether you're a survivor or someone who is working to end FGMC, what's the hardest step for someone working on FGMC or wanting to work on FGMC? And undoubtedly, in my 11, 12 years of experience, this is initiating the conversation with either a loved one or someone who has undergone the practice, or just with anyone who doesn't know anything about it. How do you tell someone about something which is taboo in so many cultures? So just grabbing the bull by the horns, it is a difficult conversation to have. We literally went for keeping that as a brief. We went for creating a tool which will enable this difficult conversation. And that's where Mumkin, the app, came in 2020. Now, I want to give you a little bit background about what Mumkin actually means. Mumkin means possible in Hindi, Urdu, and Arabic. And our whole philosophy is that it is possible to have this difficult conversation. And when we kind of started creating Mumkin, one of the things that we had in mind was, if a survivor wants to open up about her trauma or their trauma, who is she or them? Who would they go to? Again, with the years of experience and practice, we understood that the first person they would want to open up on is definitely someone close to them, say their mothers or their husbands. So keeping that in mind, we designed a chatbot which would enable to open up on FGMC to the mother and to the husband. Now, I'm sure in today's day and age, now 3 years down the line in 2023, chat GPT is the norm. Everyone is talking about how there's a chatbot which can plan your itinerary. There's a chatbot for this, there's a chatbot for that. But when we were designing it in 2019, this idea was still very nascent and in sort of under wraps. And we were also trying to think about how to make it engaging. One of the key things that came up was we want to be able to first situated in the South Asian context. Now, FGMC is a global issue, as we all know, but it's even in the global narrative that it happens in India particularly was not such a well-known fact many years ago. I would say to a certain extent even now. So we wanted to situate this chatbot in the Indian experience. So if you use Mumkin, and it's available on the Google Play Store, you'd find things written from the South Asian perspective. Like, for example, we don't call mother mom. If the chatbot is talking to you, the chatbot will say ma. How it is addressed in many Indian, South Asian households. So small design decisions like that. Who is the chatbot addressing to? And I want to talk about technology here a little bit. It's not just enough to have a technology which addresses FGMC. It's very, very important to have technology which is rooted in the experience of people who the technology wishes to serve. And that's when the experience, everybody is a Facebook user here, I suppose. For example, Facebook, when it came out with its alpha version, is very American in its approach. Hey, Priya, what can you do? Nobody in India speaks like, hey, what can you do? Hey, show me this picture. Would you like to see this picture? These small interactive messages that Facebook threw at you, for instance, was written from a very Americanized perspective, right? Because this is such a private, such a sensitive, such a localized issue, as well as at the same time being a global problem, we wanted to bring and emphasize on the South Asian experience, also targeting, eliminating on alienation, of course, right? Because anybody who has gone through FGMC, I think one of the key experience for her or them might be that they feel lonely in the journey. They don't have anyone to open up to, really. So so technology written from the South Asian experience, technology catering to the South Asian experience, and also completely written from and for the survivor, at least in its beta stage. We're still in its very, very early nascent stage. At the moment, we completely offer two fully automated conversations, and both are written from the survivor's perspective. So if you're a survivor, then you have options to navigate, like, who do you want to open up to? Do you want to open up to your mom, or do you want to open up to your husband? And so I want to say, where I spoke a little bit about where the idea came about, right? We literally thought having a conversation on the subject is the hardest and the first step. So we thought of making an app that caters to that. And the second thing, while creating the app, we thought it has to be localized as well as being global in some ways. And then something very important to me as a filmmaker, but also as a designer, that how is the subject with the heavy-handed tone where it makes you feel overwhelmed, and it makes you feel like, oh my God, this is a lot. I can't deal with it right now. I'm having a bad day. Or does the app make you feel like, okay, it's welcoming me. Let's see what else can I do with it. These decisions are very subtle, but we did kind of deliberately choose a lighter template, a lighter androgynous octopus, which would guide people's experience into having a conversation on FGMC, just to offset the heavy tone. Now, you might ask me, why am I talking about a design decision on colors and how there is an androgynous octopus? Why am I not focusing on, oh, it's such a serious matter? Because at the end of the day, when we are creating technology, it is going to come out as an app. You are in the field, in the market, however you want to put it, with so many other apps. For example, on your phone, if you have a Disney Hotstar app, if you have a Netflix app, if you have a few other apps which use very bold, bright colors, you may not even find the icon of where is Mumkin located. That was actually one of the main feedbacks to us. If you can make Mumkin icon more bolder or brighter, we'll be easily able to locate where the app is on our phone screen quickly. So colors and how Mumkin presents itself is a very, very key part of creation of Mumkin, because we wanted to have a counterintuitive approach where we wanted to offset the heaviness of the subject with a lighter tonality overall in its presentation. And at the same time, we wanted it to be eye-catchy, because one of the main challenges that we face now, not so much in the gathering where everyone is united to end FGMC, but outside, people who don't know about what FGMC is, people who would feel that this is very intense for me and I don't want to have this conversation today, it's going to ruin my day. How do you approach someone who doesn't know about the subject as well as we do, to make them, invite them into the conversation and tell them this is a global problem, this is happening to so many women, and just the official number is 200 million. God knows what the unofficial number really is. So all these things are really, really crucial in the Mumkin design making decision. I just saw a message from Caitlin that just 1 minute left for me. So that's it on Mumkin. I invite you to check out our website, mumkinapp.com. We're available on Google Play Store for the Android phones at the moment. iOS is a prototype which no longer works, but hopefully we hope to launch a more advanced version of Mumkin soon. If you have any questions about Mumkin, I'd be very happy to take that.
Thank you so much, Priya. I know myself, I've actually downloaded the Mumkin app and have played around with it, and it's really such a phenomenal use of technology. And I really appreciated what you shared about how if we're going to create these technological tools, that they really have to center the voices of those who it's intended to be used for. And if we're not doing that, then at best, we're not really reaching our goals. And at worst, we could actually be causing unintentional harm. So thank you so much for sharing that and sharing more about Mumkin. And Priya will be joining us later on the panel as well. So if you do have questions for her, please put them in the chat and we'll be able to get to them later. Next, I'm happy to introduce Miriam Mehmedi, who leads the communication and campaign work of the End FGM European Network, representing over 30 members in 16 European countries. She co-led the creation of the first ever online interactive map on female genital mutilation in Europe, which she will be presenting about right now. So let me hand it over to you, Miriam.
Hello, can you confirm that you see my presentation?
Looks good, Miriam.
Hi, thank you so much, Caitlin, for the introduction. So let me go ahead. Hello, everyone. So my name is Miriam, as Caitlin just said, and I work at the End FGM European Network. We are a network that represents over 35 women's rights and anti-FGM organizations working in Europe in various countries. The total of countries that we act in is 16 as of last year. And today I'm here to talk about the online interactive map on FGM across Europe. That is a digital tool that we think serves as a good example of how the internet, as well as digitalization and technology, can support the achievement of gender equality and of the abandonment of female genital mutilation. This happens through accessibility of knowledge, which I will explain a little bit more later, as well as awareness raising and the facilitation of advocacy efforts. So what is this map? This map is an overview in Europe of laws, policies, services, and data on female genital mutilation across the 15, soon 16 countries where we have members. So this interactive map was created by us, the End FGM European Network, to provide a centralized resource available and accessible anywhere in the world to anyone interested in a better understanding of what female genital mutilation is and how it is addressed in the European context. In particular, when it comes to what laws and policies exist in various countries, as well as the comparison of different countries on what they're doing on female genital mutilation. So let me share the next slide. I would like to talk a little bit about the creation process, because a lot of times when we talk about digitalization and new technology, we present the technology, but we don't actually explain the whole process that got us there. And we, as End FGM EU, really want to show that it's not that easy to create these tools. It it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of resources, but at the end of the day, it's really worth it, and it's worth it for the goal that we're trying to achieve. So the initial idea that we had came from the fact that we were asked very regularly to share our expertise, especially our expertise on laws and policies, which is maybe more technical, on female genital mutilation, and various stakeholders would come to us and ask us all the time, what are the laws in this country? What are the laws in this country? What is this country doing? Is this policy working? Is this a good practice? And so because we were receiving all these requests, basically we thought, how can we make our knowledge, our expertise accessible to everyone, even people who don't necessarily want to contact us directly, and that this knowledge can be used by anyone who wants to work on female genital mutilation or learn more about it. So after this initial idea of we want to make our knowledge accessible, basically we had to find how. And so we scoured different tools, and we found this existing map on sexual rights all over the world. And we thought, oh, an interactive map might be a good idea. So we started designing this map with the consultant that we hired. And basically from the initial idea of 2018, it took us 3 years to design the map, do the research, of course, with our members and also lawyers in different countries, code our mapping, so rate each country on how they're doing, identify the good practices in the country, and then, of course, web design the actual website of the map and design how it's going to look as an application. So we launched the map in May 2021, which is over a year ago. And since then, we have already updated the map with adding a new country, which is Malta, because we had this new country as part of our membership. And this year, we're going to add Austria, which is our latest edition. And from now on, of course, we continue to disseminate this map to the people who could use it. So let me just show you a little video exploring the map. Maybe that will be more explicit than just me blabbering about this. So we created this little tutorial navigating the map. It's 2 minutes. Let me know if you can hear it, please.
Welcome to the End FGM EU interactive map on FGM in Europe. I'm going to give you a brief tutorial on how to use this wonderful resource that allows you to gain full details into the laws, practices, and policies around female genital mutilation in 15 European countries. Let's get started. The main function I want to show you allows you to select a topic concerning FGM and see how different territories address it. For example, let's choose asylum, and then as you can see, the map will light up according to a color scheme that tells you how each of these countries have or intend to tackle this. Here we can see that the status of asylum granting in France is related to FGM, and it can be grounds for refugee status. If you want to read more about it, you can use this function, and you will automatically be redirected to a section on asylum in the full country report. You can always scroll up and begin reading the full report. It's important to note that each country evaluation will also be available to download in the speaking language of the country in question, which in this case is French. Another function I want to show you is a grid function that allows you to compare between multiple different countries on all of the topics available around FGM. For example, maybe we want to select France because we've already been there, and then let's say Belgium. And you can repeat this for as many countries as you want at the same time. For example, we can choose Malta, which is our newest addition to the map. And the grid will show you how each of these countries fare when it comes to a certain topic. For example, the Istanbul Convention we can see has been ratified about all of these countries, but if you want to know more about it, you simply have to click on one section, and again, the map will redirect us to the specific topic of the specific country. You can repeat this again for as many times as you want. The best way to navigate this map is to explore it for yourself and have fun looking at all the functions that might be of interest to you. The menu function is always there with additional links to satisfy your curiosity. We also have a help page that covers this map, maybe more extensive than this tutorial already has. And if you have any additional questions, you can contact us at the link on this website. We hope that this was useful to you, and we hope that this resource takes us all a step closer on the road to End FGM.
Great. Amazing. So yeah, as you can see, the map has various functions. And so my next slide is about how this map is intended to be used. So first of all, we wanted to gather all this information and make it exist on the internet for purely awareness raising purposes. So FGM, as also the Mumkin video was pointing out, is not an African issue only, and we as the End FGM European network really insist on it being actually an intra-European issue and not only an external action issue for the EU and Europe in general. And so gathering all this information on data, on laws, on policies in Europe allows us also to raise awareness on the fact that FGM is a European issue and should be addressed as a European issue internally as well. The second purpose of this map is, of course, the accessibility that I already mentioned, just having all this knowledge accessible at all times for anyone who might be able to use it. And the implication of that is that we want this map to be used as an advocacy tool. So we specifically included within the map a country comparison tool, which you saw in the tutorial, as well as a good practice filter tool. So the country comparison allows us to compare different countries on what they're doing and how they're doing on FGM. And basically, if you're, for example, from France and you want to compare it to other countries and see where France is lacking in your own context, where we could do better, or where is there is a good practice that we could take inspiration from, then you can use this map basically to build your argument. And then when you're talking to relevant stakeholders, to policymakers, to politicians, you can use specific examples of other countries doing different things on female genital mutilation. We also use this map to highlight good practices, as I just said. And so good practices is practices that we have identified as being promising in addressing female genital mutilation. Promising in the sense that they seem to give good results. They seem to be in line with our overall goal, but of course, there is always room for improvement and reassessment as we gather more data. So one example of a good practice, for example, is the multidisciplinary survivor-centered care. So multidisciplinary meaning that these survivor centers which provide care for survivors have various disciplines involved. So from medical professionals to social care professionals to psychological care professionals as well, because at End FGM EU, we believe in holistic care, so that care for survivors should not only be focusing on the physical consequences of the practice, but on all the other consequences of the practice, which may have implications on the well-being of survivors. And one of the best examples that we have identified is the Semavi Center in Belgium, which we have identified as a center that provides holistic care for survivors, and care that is both accessible but also culturally sensitive and culturally aware. And so we really highlight this as a good practice and really advocate for these centers to pop up all over Europe, and especially in the countries where we have members, obviously. So this map is really intended to be used by everyone, but of course, because, and this is something that we'll talk about also during the panel discussion, because digitalization is not necessarily accessible to everyone, it's important for us as civil society organizations to recognize that not everyone has access to technology, not everyone has access to the internet, and not everyone has the digital literacy to access these informations. So as Priya was saying, we need also to make an effort towards the people who are, at the end of the day, the beneficiaries of our work. And we need to make sure that our content is accessible as possible. And when we receive feedback on this map, for example, that it's not accessible in any shape or form, we try to address this feedback as much as possible. And we try to make sure that the perspectives of people who are affected by female genital mutilation is centered and included in everything that we do, including this digital tool. So Lastly, as I said before, the last step of our work on this map is the dissemination of this map. So we really want to make sure that this map is used by its intended targets, which are policymakers, professionals, and of course, affected communities. And so for this map to be known, we have in 2023 organized the whole campaign around mapping the roadmap to End FGM. So play on words on maps, basically. And so our Road to End FGM campaign will highlight the interactive map as well as the voices of, as I said before, people working at the grassroots on female genital mutilation. So kind of combining the good practices that we have identified in our mapping, the interactive map and its existence on the internet, as well as the stories, individual experiences of people working every day or being affected by female genital mutilation. So don't hesitate to support this campaign and to use this map. Thank you so much for listening. Here is the hashtag and all the information you need to support our campaign, and of course access the map at map.endfgm.eu. Let me stop sharing my screen.
Thank you so much, Miriam. Was such a great resource. Thank you so much for sharing more information, and I'm excited to hear more from you. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Ismail, who's going to be moderating our panel today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kathleen. Yeah, and thank you so much, Miriam, for, I think that was amazing presentation. Something I think people who are in the continent, especially from Africa, I think we need to borrow that kind of idea. We need a map also showing sort of the the prevalence and just technical information about FGM in Africa. So anyway, I'm Ismail Omar. I'm the head of policy and advocacy for the Girl Generation, which is also known as Support to the Africa-Led Movement to an FGMC program that is funded by FCDO. I'm based at AMREF Health Africa, which is one of the consortium partners for the program. Of course, we have other consortium partners like ActionAid and Population Council and others. So now we will transition to a panel with our keynote speakers, and of course some new folks, including Julie Dubois and Purity Christine, of course, who will be really sort of supporting the conversation that we're having today on technological innovations. And so let me begin with Julie Dubois, is a child protection specialist at UNICEF. So Julie is working on harmful practices and specifically on the elimination of female genital mutilation. While Purity Christine is the co-founder of iCut Up, and I think right now they have rebranded to, I think she's the founder of Uncut Gems Anti-FGM Foundation. So the iCut app is a technology that connects girls at risk of FGM, and also it's used to to ensure that these girls also have access to rescue centers, and of course it also provides timely access to legal assistance. So we have apologies from Denge Lugayo, who works with AMREF South Africa, and who is a project manager for gender-based violence and child protection project in Kajiado and Narok counties. He's also a public health specialist in the areas of integrated water, sanitation, and hygiene with 30 years of experience. Unfortunately, Denge will not be joining us today, but since we come from the same organization, I'll just be sharing a brief of what he would have presented. So without further ado, let's begin with the first panel question. So this question goes to Purity, and of course, we'll also come later to Priya. But the question is, what motivated you to create your piece of tech? And how is your tech being used to help address FGMC? So maybe can we begin with Purity? Maybe you can tell us more about the iCut app, what motivated you to create it and the impact it has had so far. Purity?
Okay, thank you so much, Ismail. My name is Purity Christine. he had introduced me earlier, so I'll just talk about iCut. So iCut is an app, an Android app that enables girls at a risk of FGM to connect to rescue centers and also to police stations when they're at risk or they're about to be cut. iCut also provides information on FGM, and I've noticed there's a few similarities with the map that Miriam talked about. So for us to just talk a little bit about what FGM is so that people can also be aware, to create awareness. But majorly our focus is to rescue the girls. So how does iCut app work? I would advise you to get on Google Play Store and download it so that after this session, you can also go through and understand it much better. So the app works as an emergency, as a tool for making emergency calls. So if someone is at a risk of FGM, they can click on a call button. It's an emergency call button, and then that call wires the call to either a rescue center or a call center that has been established within a certain region. So currently we are working with Narok and West Pokot. Those are the two counties in Kenya that we have exhausted our work in. So we have established a call center in Narok, and we're currently in the process of establishing one in West Pokot. So when a victim needs help, the victim can just dial, and then the call goes to a health center, and then they can get help. Yeah, I think that answers the question, Ismail, unless maybe you need additional information.
Yeah, I think that's okay for now. Maybe we hear more from Priya. Priya, maybe it would be great to hear. Maybe you've mentioned, but maybe you could emphasize now what really motivated you to, coming up with the Mumkin app.
Thank you for that question. Actually, while iCut is great, we targeted something more systemic. Like I said earlier, the whole goal was conversation. So the idea was, how can I not just stop it from happening? How can I make sure that it doesn't happen, or somebody who's already undergone the practice can unburden themselves from the trauma that they have undergone this. And one of the key factors, that's something that we still are exploring, is every organization present in the panel today has a Facebook page, has an Instagram page, has a Twitter page. And will also know from the back end of it that, survivors who follow your page, they are being watched by their family members. We got, as Sayu, I'm also the co-founder of Sayu, we know from first-hand accounts of people who tell us, oh, I liked your post on Facebook and my family got really upset. So when there is such a, huge amount of surveillance happening around you, how do you have a relatively private experience where the other people can't just simply log on and watch you? Of course, if you have an Instagram page, you can make it a private page, but maybe you have it on your phone where only you have access to. I'm saying this with asterisks because even that concept might be not foolproof, especially in countries like India, where intimate partners have access to the phones as well. So that calls for a longer discussion and how our design decisions moved around it. But yes, surveillance, intimate family surveillance and surveillance on social media was one of the key motivators for us to make an app which is not Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah, thank you so much. Priya, for that response. I think maybe let's go to Miriam. I think maybe you can also answer the same question. And while you're doing that, in terms of the question was around what motivated you to come up with the app. And in your case, it's the EU map. So maybe you can tell us what motivated you to create that piece of tech, and also maybe while you're answering that, can you also let us know some of the challenges you have faced creating and implementing the online map? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ismail. So similarly to my co-panelists, the desire to create this map was, of course, awareness raising and access to information. And it came from the fact also that we understood that technology can be a great asset in raising awareness, in advocating on social issues. And we knew that, for example, End FGM itself was born from a campaign. Actually, that's the story of our organization. We started first as a campaign on FGM in Europe, and then from the campaign was born this organization. And the campaign was also heavily relying on digital tools, of course. And so it seemed like a natural kind of progression to also make our knowledge available digitally. So this is why we created this map. We know that we live in this kind of increasingly data-driven and technology and internet-centered era, and we also live at a time where information is everywhere at all times, and the people, especially the targets that we have, the advocacy targets that we have, are kind of smothered or buried under pleas for actions on different social issues. So as such a sensitive and taboo topic as FGM can be very buried under all this information overload, keeping up to date with technology, with digitalization, with communication tools is really essential to remain relevant and thus heard about this issue. So this is actually one of the challenges. So kind of like segueing into the second question, of course, the information overload, the struggle to disseminate tools when you're in a landscape where there are so many new tools, so many apps, so many things all the time. And that's also something that Priya spoke about as well. Like everyone has a ton of apps on their phones, a ton of websites that they visit regularly. So how do you make your little spot in there in that noise? Then the second challenge was, of course, about how to make this happen. So how to make a tool that is not as dry as policy and advocacy can be, sometimes how to make it exciting, how to make it engaging. And the way we address this, of course, was through this interactive map that people can just play around in. The second challenge was the amount of work and coordination that was required to build this map. First, we started with 14 countries, which is already a very, very big group of countries. And all of this required a lot of work. It was 2 years of research, basically coordinating with our members. And of course, our members are local organizations, sometimes smaller organizations, sometimes organizations that are community-based and have maybe less resources and less access. So it was really challenging to engage with them and include them, because that was really important to us to have this tool be created also by the organizations that we are serving as a network. And finally, and this is particularly relevant for this event because we're talking to donors, the essential challenge, the central challenge is the money challenge, of course, and the resources that are needed to make these kind of tools happen. The creation of this map required us to secure funding, not only to cover the staff costs of people who worked on creating this map, but also the consultancy costs, the hosting costs of the website. And of course, now we still need funds to maintain the website, to update it, and of course, to disseminate it, because what is the use of this tool if it's not disseminated and if it's not known by the people we're trying to make it used by? So yes, the paramount challenge is definitely money, and donors can address that. Thank you, Ismail.
Thank you so much, Miriam, for that. I think it's amazing to hear. Of course, there are also challenges, but of course you're also trying to navigate through those challenges. I think it's really encouraging to hear that. And now maybe we go back to Purity, also maybe answering the same question as a young innovator. What are some of the challenges you had maybe when you were creating and implementing the ICAT app?
Thank you, Ismail. One of the major challenges we faced is acceptance of the digital product. The reason is because some of these communities, they practice this and it's a culture to them. So it's difficult to bring them something that to them they feel is not something that they need, even though they know that the cut is costly to the girl child. So that's one of the challenges, transforming mindsets. introducing positive mindsets towards innocuous culture, that is harmless culture. So because the first time actually we had talked about the app iCut, we got negative feedback from one of the men from a certain community in Kenya, and his was, why are you trying to fight female genital mutilation, and this is our culture? So this roots down to cultural practices. This roots down to why men allow FGM to be carried out. This roots down to wealth. It roots down to actually, let me just start it all over again. Let me use West Pokot as an example, because that's a place we've been in for a long time. So most of these girls, when they get cut, they are married off. So the cut stands as a rite of passage in the society. So if you come in and then you say, you people need to stop the cut, then fathers and some brothers start asking questions like, where will we get the money if we want to be able to sell our girls off? So those are some of the challenges we face. But majorly it boils down to cultural mindsets, transforming cultural mindsets. And then, of course, reaching out to these communities is also a challenge. We realize that the cut is not the only challenge that these people face. So bringing to them technology and telling them, we want you to stop cutting. You speak to professional cutters and then they say, if we stop cutting, where will we get the money from? So, they do it for the money, for the wealth, for the cows. So that's a challenge. We need to find a place to take these girls. We need to find a way to teach these cutters other ways of making money. We need to find a way to sustain the girls that we have saved. So those are some of the challenges that we're facing. So we came in as a link, as iCut, but we realized that these girls need more than just being saved. They need to be catered for in a rescue center. We come in as a link to tell the cutters, stop cutting, but these cutters, let me use the word cutters, they need ways of making money. They need to be taught entrepreneurship. They need to be taught maybe farming, if it's trade, something that they can actually sustain themselves with so that they can stop the cut. Yeah, so that also boils down to the financial needs of these girls, of these women, of these rescue centers, and of course of these cutters. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Purity. I think you've brought a very important aspect that even while you're having these technological apps, I think it's good to ensure that it's not just about software, that's the hardware part, which is actually going to the community, and because this is a very sensitive subject, and there's need to have complementary offline activities. And I think that came out very well. And of course, you've talked about, of course, this being a challenging subject. It's an emotional and sensitive issue. Of course, there's a lot of backlash, and you can imagine introducing a technological tool in an atmosphere that is where you're already having backlash. I think it can be challenging. So thank you so much for bringing that out. And
Ismail?
Yes.
Yes, if you can allow me just mention one last thing.
Yes, please.
It's the tech. Most of these communities, they don't have access to smartphones. So we have to introduce a USSD code for them to actually use. But the app was essentially made to be more effective with a map, which will enable the girls to get access to a rescue center that is around them. So that's another challenge that I forgot to mention. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I think it's a very important one. Not everybody is connected. Maybe not everyone has smartphones, and so we've seen most organizations or innovators trying to ensure there's the other functionalities like the USSD. So thank you so much for bringing that out. Just wanted to mention something around Qatas and funding. I think this is just to ponder, not really to respond to. I think there's a recent study that has shown that supporting Qatas with income generating activities does not necessarily lead to the elimination of FGM. So I think it's something just we may need to think through it when we are implementing, or rather when we're looking at effective interventions to end FGMC. So maybe that is just for us to think through. And this takes me to the next speaker. Julie works for UNICEF, and maybe you can let us know, maybe I know of one app that you've developed here in Kenya called the Pasha app, and I know UNICEF is big when it comes to using, especially low-cost technologies, in developing countries particularly. So what are the benefits of technology and digitalization in the work to end FGMC? Julie?
So yes, thank you very much. So I'm working for UNICEF at global level. So what we have seen, with especially with the COVID-19 pandemic. So yes, we all know that the COVID pandemic has disrupted the progress towards the full abandonment of FGM. But at the same time, the pandemic also significantly expanded the use of digital technologies, and we have seen that technologies are used in many ways. So some of the ways, for reaching more people and amplify messages, especially among youngest generation. Also, one other way is to connect people between themselves and create a community of positive deviants, because FGM is strongly linked to social norms, and in some communities, you can be, you can think that you are the only one who doesn't want the FGM, but yeah, when you have the use of technology, you can see you are not alone. So it's a good way, to connect people, to connect people. It's also a good way, to open new doors for the empowerment of girls and survivors. And we like, the Mumkin app. You can use technology, to develop a life skill program, to develop a digital learning for girls and for survivors. And it's also, a good way to link services to population, to support and accelerate referral pathway and increase the reporting and the surveillance of the practice. So one of the good examples is the Pasha app in Kenya, and the Pasha app is both a responsive and a preventive tool. So the app allows the user to access to FGM related information and also to report anonymously case of FGM in real time, and and after you have a link to services and to response services. So this is some example of the use of technology, and you also have some gap, but maybe it's another question that will come after.
All right. Thank you so much. I think, it's because I think I have personally interacted. There was at the launch of the Pasha app, which is a very good app, and it actually helps in reporting. So I think it's such an effective way, of using, technological, innovation to really, end FGM. So my question back to Priya, maybe we can also talk about the challenges maybe you faced when you are creating the Mumkin app, and maybe just to add to that question, maybe you can tell us, the benefit. What are the benefits of the technology and digitalization in the work to end FGMC?
I think Purity summed it up so beautifully well in one word: acceptance. That is the greatest challenge anyone and everyone would face while bringing in a new innovation on such a sensitive topic like FGMC. Not just acceptance on a level of how can I put a new app on my phone, which is a very oh, I don't have phone space, I want to delete some apps. That's a very rudimentary level. More on the level of how can I trust this? How can I trust technology to open about something so private, my pain? And Mumkin really works on the level of emotional level of opening up, right, on trauma. So I'm sure many of us are aware of mental health apps like Headspace, like Wysa. Wysa, W-Y-S-A, is an app that actually uses AI, quite similar to Mumkin. And there's instead of androgynous octopus Mumkin that we have, they have a penguin, and the penguin greets you and takes you through the whole experience and calls themselves the 4 a.m. buddy, right? Now, FGMC is such a private experience. Why would I want to open up on my phone about FGMC? Why should anyone trust an app? And I think Maria mentioned this, there's an Internet of Things surrounding us and everything is data driven, right? So where is our data going? If I take a chat with the whole bot, where is the data being stored? Who is managing that data? And at the level of creation of Mumkin, we have to think through all of those things at the level of where is the data getting stored, at the level of who is going to be able to access the data, what are we going to do with the data, and then make it absolutely transparent. This is what our app looks like. These are the plus points, these are the limitations. I'll give you a example. While we were in the testing user phase, a lot of people told us login is very difficult. You know, there's a username, there's a password. I don't want to navigate all that. Why can't it be a one-step login with your email, Google login? Why can't it be a one-step Google login? Because I actually started creating Mumkin while I was in my early 30s, right? And I come from a filmmaking background. The answer to that why is a shocker to me, because the why of it is Google takes all your data in one step. The moment you log in on Google, your location, your monitor, your internet activities, everything goes to Google. So yes, logging into Mumkin is hard, but you know where your data is going. Your data is going servers, and we don't give data to any third parties. We guard it with our lives, as simple as that. So it's very important to ask a lot of these difficult questions from start to finish. Then they translate into design decisions for the app itself. Should there be a login page? Am I making it easy for the user to sign up? If the user is finding it difficult to sign up, which indeed Mumkin is it going to be worth it for the user? And then what Purity said, everything aside, will the community accept it? Will the community, as someone asked this very important question on distribution of the app, how am I going to distribute the app? How am I going to make sure the community members, survivors actually take to the app and then are able to use it in a way that we use more popular mental health apps? And I'm sorry, Ismail, I forgot the second part of your question. Could you please repeat it?
Yeah, so it was around, so you've mentioned the challenges, and of course you've also mentioned as you were speaking, the sort of limitations of, digitalization and technology. So the question is, so how do you also work to overcome these challenges or to bridge these gaps?
Yeah, and you also talked about why should there be a road to digitalization, right? Because if you don't, someone else will do it. Someone else sitting in Silicon Valley will do it. And they will do it in a way where they won't represent your language. It will look, and they will. So again, a new revelation for a new tech creator who has never studied technology before was like, if I want to put my ad out there, I'm paying Google for it. And if you want to search Mumkin, the most prompt, the first search will be a Pakistani serial, a television serial. And Google actually manages that algorithm. So how can I make sure Mumkin is seen by people who need to see it? For that, do I spend that kind of money? Do I also play Google's game of, monetizing everything? Small things like that, because if you don't do it, someone else will do it. Someone else who doesn't speak your language, doesn't understand the veracity, how serious this is, will do it. And of course, there is a very serious need for feminist tech. I can go on and on about how AI is rising. The evil rising may not look like, oh my God, there's a bot, which may not look like Matrix, but will definitely look like what it already looks like: sexist and racist, big time. So we need to step up and, again, grab the bull by its horns and also enter technology and write it from an African woman's perspective, an Asian woman's perspective, an American woman's perspective, and but sensitively written with experience. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much. I think you're bringing a very important point, that digital transformation and technological innovation represents opportunities and challenges. But again, also we've seen gendered patterns in use of new technologies. So yeah, so I think that's something to really think through also. Let me bring Purity back to the panel. So the question I wanted to ask you is, you've mentioned a couple of challenges. You've mentioned the difficulties, especially in implementing, or rather in operationalizing the apps in the communities where you work. So how have you been able to overcome those pitfalls? Yeah, and also maybe you can also mention sort of the benefits of the app itself, the ICAT app. So, how have you been able to overcome the challenges you've mentioned? And also it would be great to hear from you, sort of what are the, sort of impact or the benefits of that particular app. Purity.
All right, thank you. So how we've been able to overcome these challenges. One, I had mentioned that we were facing a challenge with many of these people who need the app, they were unable to access smartphones. So we counteracted that by introducing a USSD code that also functions similarly as the Android app, although it doesn't have the mapping feature that is present in the Android app. So the second thing is that we decided to have the Android app used among community champions. Yes, so community champions are these people who community members trust a lot. The preacher, pastors, chief, just community leaders who people easily run to for help. So these are our primary target in terms of the utilization of the app. So what happens is that these community champions, many of them have smartphones. So that's the good thing. So whenever there is a case that needs reporting, then whoever needs to report can run to any community champion, and then that will be facilitated, or that person will be redirected to the rescue centers or the police stations. So that's the second way that we dealt with the challenge of many of them not having smartphones. The reason is that we need them to use the Android app because it has a mapping feature. So the mapping feature helps them to identify where they are and identify the police stations and the rescue centers that are nearest to them. So all of these people, they form a network, and we as ICAT, we are their link. So we link them to each other so that the rescue operations are made faster. Of course, that's for now. Maybe if I think of something else along there, I'll let you know.
Thank you so much. I think I can bring again Miriam. Yeah, so I think you already mentioned as well the challenges that you're facing. Maybe it would be great to know how you navigated through those challenges. And also, I would also like to hear your view in terms of, gender analysis, of the use of technology reveals a historically unequal power relationship between especially women and women, and differences in access to economic resources and knowledge, together with gender norms and perceptions of technology, can sideline girls and women from technological developments. So how do you ensure that the tools that you've developed are accessible to the most affected?
Thank you so much for this question, which is really prompting me to talk about what I wanted to talk about. So that's amazing. So as all the other panelists actually already mentioned, there is an issue, like a double-edged sword with digitalization, that it can both provide accessibility and actually also create accessibility issues. So accessibility, of course, is never perfect. And that is the case for accessibility to people with disabilities, of course, but also accessibility in terms of language. So if our map right now is mostly in English, how accessible can it be to other people who don't speak English? we have translations for the countries, but we don't have, for example, for now, community language on the map. Accessibility also to people who don't have access to the internet, don't have computers, or maybe don't have the digital literacy to navigate such a map. So in this case, we really try to make as much effort as possible, but of course, with the limitation of our resources. So as I said, we provided translations where possible in the country languages. We also made sure that the map was easy to use. We created this video tutorial that I showed earlier so that if anyone is unsure about how to navigate the map, they could still use it. And of course, there is the issue that you mentioned, Ismail, about the digital divide and how this primarily affects people who are marginalized and women. Because digital technologies can really either be great at breaking barriers or they can create further barriers. They can either, shift the balance of power, or they can end up reinforcing imbalances and inequalities. So it's really our role as civil society organizations to make sure that when we go towards digitalization and technology, we make sure to do it in a way that shows an example of accessibility and inclusivity, and that we really challenge the systems of oppression, the systems of domination that already exist in society. Because whatever technology we create as humanity will just reproduce the biases that we have as humanity. So we really have to be conscious about this and really make sure that we build in our tools things that prevent this reproduction of oppression. Also, of course, what you talked about in terms of a gender perspective, we know that both there is the lack of access, lack of resources, which impact women primarily, of course. Also, the lack of literacy in general, and also digital literacy will impact women more within the populations that are already impacted. But also there is the issue of online hate speech and online gender-based violence, which is an entirely new issue that is very complicated right now to address, and the tools, even the policy and legal tools, are fairly limited. And so it's hard for the laws and policies to keep up with this tendency of online gender-based violence. But of course, this also can hinder the access of women to these tools. One thing also that I wanted to mention, because Priya mentioned it as well, is this idea of privacy. Of course, the internet and digital tools can really provide more privacy in a way, but if we are not aware and if we don't make sure that, for example, big data doesn't get all this data on the vulnerable people that we're trying to get to use our tools, then this privacy is completely void, of course. And also, even if we do have this privacy, there's also the risk that someone might check information on female genital mutilation, and then someone else is behind them and sees what they access, and then they're in danger because they're not supposed to look up these kind of topics. So this is all to say that there are many, many challenges, and we have to face them. And to face them, what is needed is resources and funding and commitment and dedicating actual investment to address these pitfalls, which are very real and can become a reality.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think you've really brought out the point, especially when you're talking about how how these technologies presents opportunities and of course risks of digitalization for young people, and particularly girls and women. And of course, you've brought about other issues about somehow I think you mentioned about self-efficacy. You talk about privacy, and we have seen how all this again reflects the influence of wider gender norms on perceptions of technological self-efficacy. So and they've also tried to bring about the issue of investment, which brings me to my question. And maybe I would like to bring in Julie to really help us. And of course, anyone in the panel can be able to respond to. Why is it important for donors to support organizations working to boost their digitalization and technological innovation?
So thank you. Maybe if I can come just around challenges, there is also
Yes.
another challenge, what is very important. It's, FGM is a social norm, and we have little evidence that digital approach will succeed in changing behavior and social and gender norms. If you use, only technology or digitalization, you have to combine, all technology, digital approach to more traditional approaches. And I think it's very important also to highlight this, if you only work online or remote, you will face many challenges around the, social norm, and you have to work, also in person with community, with services, with families, with individuals. So just to be clear on that, digitalization and technology is an opportunity, but we can't do it alone. So maybe around the question around investment. So what we really need from donors around support for around the digitalization is also to build evidence. We need to demonstrate that digitalization and technical innovation combine to more traditional program work, and it's essential. It's essential, to reach some specific community or specific targeted group of population. But also we need also a very solid costing exercise. We need to bring the proof that what is the added value of technological innovation for FGM elimination, and what does it cost, in a context of limited resources. If you have a program and you put like 80% or 90% of your fund, into digitalization or technological innovation, is it a strong added value, and clearly what is the cost per girl to have this kind of program. Another very important point, it's essential to include girl's voice when you develop any digital product or services, and this is also something we need to flag to donors, and we need to support innovation that have been tested, evaluated, and that respond to need of girls. So this is also something very important, and it's clearly I'm echoing what Priya mentioned around who is developing app. Is it a Silicon Valley or more people survivor and people very strongly committed toward FGM elimination, and also we need clearly we need to develop clearly the theory of change for digital strategy, and to do link at every level of socio-ecological model, at every level, we need to do the link with traditional program, and how the technology can support our program. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, thank you so much, Julie. I think you really summed up very well. And maybe because of time, I think we really press for time. We will move to the next session, and then of course after Caitlin's session, of course we will move later to we'll be able to get some questions from the audience, especially the questions around investment. So so thank you so much for the panelists. That was amazing for your amazing contribution. So back to you, Caitlin.
Thank you so much, and it's been great hearing this panel discussion. And I want to, we have a quick video from an organization called Last Mile 4D. We were hoping they could participate in this panel discussion, but unfortunately they weren't able to, but they did submit this video instead. And so Last Mile 4D is a member of the US network, and they are another, similar to the other panelists here, a true innovator that uses technology and real-time data collection to prevent FGMC, particularly in the last mile of Kenya. So please enjoy this video from Last Mile 4D talking about the work that they do.
My name is Manals Harrison, and I am the president and CEO of Last Mile 4D. I established Last Mile 4D in 2014, and that was right after I have completed my Fulbright scholarship. There, my focus was also on women's health, and I saw firsthand that lack of access by women to information because this was all rural areas, remote areas, that people did not have adequate access to information about health and safety from abuse. And that's why I looked actually for alternative solution. And that was Last Mile for the. Our mission is to really work with remote areas where women and girls have less access to information and knowledge about their health. And once they have access to that information and they learn about their rights, that is step forward. They have a healthier lives and they can go forward with it. Half the population of the world are women. Many of them live in the last mile communities. When FGM happens, they lose all other opportunities. If we want to have an equal world, if we want a world that everyone can strive and everyone can benefit from this equality that we are talking about, we have to stop the FGM. I call FGM the mother of all illnesses because not only you cut the body, you cut the spirit, you cut the life, you cut the health, you cut education, you cut every opportunity. FGM is a silent crime, and it happens because it's not documented. We turn this silent crime into a public crime because we have data, well-documented cases that if they don't intervene, the girl would be cut. So our girls, the girls that are enrolled in our program, they're not going to become part of statistics. We are working very hard to prevent them from undergoing FGM. In 2019, we actually received a grant from Grand Challenges Canada to do a pilot project in Kenya with help of Kenyan partners. So through that project, that pilot project, we established astonishing reports into the fact that the 1,000 girls that we were enrolling in our program, none of them were cut during the cutting season. So that was something that helped us to propel us to go forward as the pilot was so successful. VPAC for development, which has two components. One component is a physical component, which is a solar-powered backpack that effectively helps the field officers to have their equipment always charged, their phone, their computers, their tablet. They will all be charged by the time they reach the destination that they want to work with the students and the girls. The second and most important component of it is a platform that has the data in it, that the data that is drawn out from the girls as we interview them to assess the risk level, how much trouble they are in terms of undergoing FGM. And then we also have these educational modules that we educate different segments of the society, communities, the boys and girls in the schools, and stakeholders. We educate all of them about the harms of FGM and the cost of FGM. And it is that data analysis that's helping us to be able to have everyone realizing that this is real. And the other piece of it is that when we do know that there is situation that the girls are going to be at risk, we have crisis management. So there are shelters, safe houses, there's a hotline that they can call, there's direct contact to the authorities, police and commanders that have worked with us, and also keeping them safe. They will bring them to the center. As we reach the end of 2022, we have worked with close to 3,000 girls, over 800 boys, more than 4,000 family members, and large group of stakeholders that includes the religious leaders, the chiefs of various authorities in the government. So we have worked with the local authorities to really back us up from the get-go. In my opinion, it will take another generation for the boys and girls to absorb what is their rights to health, rights to freedom of torture, freedom of abuse. That generation, and they're going to be, well, indeed, the girls that are going to stand up to their aunties and grandmas and the girls that have been empowered to speak up. And they will bring other sisters along And that is how you could get rid of FGM.
So I hope you all enjoyed that video from Last Mile 4D. We definitely wanted to make sure to include their work in this conversation as well. Ismail is having some technical difficulties, so I'm going to jump in and moderate this last Q&A. We are very short on time, so I would like all of the panelists to take maybe 1 minute to respond to this one question, so we can go through for each of the panelists to respond to the question of why is it important for donors, particularly, to support organizations that are working to boost their digitalization and technological innovation? Priya, how about we start with you?
Okay, my time starts now. Great. Okay, it's very important because, like I said before, if we don't do it, someone from Silicon Valley would, and they would do it in a way where it is not safe for girls and women. The data is going to be mined. The data is going to be sold to hospitals, big pharma, you name it. It's your data, your phone number, your email, everything. How many times you log in? And I know this because we built it. We saw the backend. One of the first questions I got from the tech team at Mumkin was, "Hey, do you want to monitor the location of the people logging in?" I was like, wait, this is not Google. Why am I able to see the location of people? We don't have that kind of funding, but we can. That's the kind of technology even a rudimentary basic funding can get you. So if we don't do it, feminists don't do it, someone else will, and it wouldn't be safe. That's one. And second of all, everything is data driven. Metaverse is not just Facebook's new platform. It's also the world that we are going to live in now, where everything is on the virtual platform. So even storytelling is actually going to happen on the virtual platforms. Storytelling of generational change is going to happen on virtual platforms. And me as a digital creator of films and now an app, I can tell you, I've seen someone who, for example, drew a clitoris diagram for her father using Mumkin app and saying, "See, Papa, this was cut." That is the power of a media twice removed from you. I've seen that change firsthand, and I thoroughly believe in it.
Thank you. And Miriam, how about you go next?
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to just echo Priya's wonderful 1 minute intervention. And just to add to that, I want to say that we need the resources to build the capacity of all stakeholders and not just the powerful organizations or bigger organizations. When it comes to technology and digitalization, we need funding to be made available for smaller grassroots organizations to support their own digitalization effort and their own tech projects, and not just them supporting or getting along with the bigger projects. We need this funding to be feminist and specifically targeted towards marginalized populations and organizations, making sure that these tools are not only created for them, but by them. And regarding the risks of online hate speech and online gender-based violence, donors should make sure that their funding prevents the perpetuation of these inequalities, and they should invest in digital education and feminist education for everyone. And this is the only way to ensure that this trend of digitalization does not only end up reinforcing systems of oppression and the already problematic top-down dynamics, but actually challenges them and creates a more equal future.
Great, thank you so much, Miriam. Purity, I'd love to hear from you next.
Okay, thank you, Caitlin. As I had mentioned earlier, technology is always a link. So the real work is on the ground. So ending FGM is not going to be done through just talk. We also need to interact with these girls. We need to interact with these women and rescue centers, see what they need, see what happens to them after they have been rescued, so that they don't say, "We'll do this so that we can have money." How can we empower them? How can we empower the rescue centers to be able to cater for them? And also, I think it's important for us to take part in our own development and growth, not to wait for anyone to do it for us. As the last two panelists have mentioned, it's a good thing to actually take part in something that's worthwhile, something worth it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And Julie, you'll get the last word.
Yeah, thank you. I think, what is very important, it's the world is connected, despite, you know, the gender digital divide. Clearly, the world is connected, and, you know, all the discourse, all people, you know, who are pro FGM are already connected. I think 2 days ago, I received, you know, a friend sent me, you know, a tweet with, you know, a very infographic design about, you know, the medical benefit of FGM. You know, I was so surprised because it was the first time for me to see this, but clearly, you know, and the pro FGM discourse is already online, and we need, you know, to also to invest in this area, because yes, we need to yes, to win the fight online against FGM. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to all of our panelists, Priya, Miriam, Purity, Julie. Thank you so much. I personally really enjoyed this discussion. And we do want to share a little bit, we want to share some additional information about our panel and this event. So please, on your screen, you can see links to all of our different organizations and the different tech that we had talked about today. I do recognize, since we are short in time, that there are some questions that we didn't get to. I'm hoping that some of these additional resources may provide you with either answers to your questions, or at least contact information for somebody that you can reach out to. So I'm glad that we're able to provide this information for you all. And then lastly, before we wrap up today, I do want to share about this new letter that the Global Platform is just releasing today in light of International Women's Day. So the Global Platform for Action to End FGMC, like I said, is officially releasing a letter calling for an emergency global summit to end FGMC. This summit will convene grassroots actors with funders and global leaders. And to end FGMC, this summit cannot be another talking shop, but it must secure $2.1 billion that is needed to close this funding gap that we are facing around this issue of FGMC to achieve our goal by 2030. So for more information on this letter, Patricia just linked to it in the chat. Please take a look, help spread the word. Yeah, so this is very important. We certainly need to really accelerate these efforts to end FGM and to close this funding gap. So once again, thank you everybody for attending this webinar. Thank you to all of our panelists and for everybody who has participated. I hope that you found it informative and helpful, and please access any of the resources that we shared for additional information. So thank you everybody.